I'm going to start things off by introducing another Kyle. Some of them, you might notice him. He's one of the four main characters from a TV show called South Park. It's been running for almost 20 years now on Comedy Central. It's about four boys, including Kyle, in a small town in Colorado in the United States. Drives its humor with crude satire and mostly on current events, both on the US and in the world. But I don't want to talk about the show. I really want to talk about the team that makes their show and how they go about making it. What I find really interesting about the team at South Park is they deliver a show in 6 days. So from start to finish, it only takes them 6 days. They deliver their episode only hours before they go on air. To put that in context, similar cartoons like The Simpsons takes about 6 to 8 months to produce an episode. For those of you that aren't good at math, that's about 30 times faster for that South Park. Benefits for them for the tight turnaround are enormous. The most important to them is their ability to capitalize on recency events to deliver more humor. For example, they added in parts of President Obama's victory speech only 24 hours before the show aired. To me, that kind of turnaround is absolutely incredible, not just for web, but for a TV show. They're able to have a much smaller team because of this. About 25 people for the animation team, compared to almost 90 for The Simpsons. That's close to 1/4 the size. And that's just the animation team. The team's sound, producers, cast, all follow suit, being about 1/4 of the size. They are able to do that by having a diverse team of journalists. The animators on staff storyboard, animate, color, and light. Each of those is usually done by groups of people for The Simpsons. The show's head animator, the guy in the back of the photo, has this quote in the documentary 6 Days to Air about his animators. You not only have to be good and diverse, but you have to be fast. If it takes you 4 days to get something done, you can't really contribute to production. This really enforces their mentality of having a large variety of skills for each one of their animators and delivering on each one quickly, so they can get the episode out in 6 days. Their time crunch adds pressure and constraints for them to ship. But they themselves believe that if they were given more time, the shows would only be marginally better. They view these constraints, the time constraints, as a positive. In order to help speed up the process, they have mimicked Monty Python's animation style. Their characters make quick, choppy movements. This allows them to focus more on the content of each episode and then fine-tuning of each animation. Incredibly, in the 20 years that they've been running, they've only missed a deadline once. And that's because the production studio lost power 2 days before the show aired. It's a pretty good excuse. This generalist mentality is embodied by the show's creators, Matt and Trey, who write the script, help storyboard, direct, and continue to do the voice for the four main characters and many of the sub-characters as well. Their first pilots, they were even part of the animation team. This means they have a strong sense of empathy for their team. They know constraints that the animation team and the production team is going to face in the writer's room as they're writing the episodes. They also see each episode through from start in the writer's room to finish in the production room. Their hands are all over the show that they create still, where many shows creators walk off after the first couple years. Because they maintain influence over the show, they're able to communicate original intent that they create in the writer's room and follow through on the jokes that they're creating in the writer's room all the way to the final production. Make sure that those jokes are built upon when they go through animation. The reason I bring up the team at South Park is because there's a lot of parallels to their team and my teammates at thoughtbot. Everyone at thoughtbot is a designer or a developer, and we're all generalists. Each one of us has a wide range of skills, and for each skill, we're able to deliver quickly and efficiently. Over a year ago, I was asked to lead the design team. One of the questions that I was asked was about the role of design at the company. Specifically, if we should continue to have designers implementing their designs on the web with HTML and CSS, and how they should be implementing our designs in mobile apps. Basically, the age-old question of, should designers code? We're not the first to ask this question, and we're probably not going to be the last. Should designers code is a debate that's hopped around the internet for years. It's been talked about, abused, reused, so much now that's basically a meme. Everyone has their own opinion on it, and no one minds sharing their opinion. It took me only a few minutes to find a bunch of tweets making fun of it. If a tool falls in the forest, but no one is around to see it, should designers learn to code? Should designers learn to code? Delete your account. I should probably just delete this entire presentation, I guess. This one's my favorite. Should designers read the Da Vinci Code? Yes, all of you. What makes this awful is there's no way to put a blanket statement like this in front of all designers, everywhere. Collectively, we're a group of widely varying people with widely varying skills and widely varying roles and widely varying teams, all trying to solve for a wide range of problems. Not only that, but the terms that we're throwing around are vague. What is code? Is it programming or markup and style? How much of it should you know? There's a scale of knowledge. What even is design? Each one of our points of view is dictated by the roles and relationships we've had up until this point. The question also ignores the skills that we need to build software on. They all lie in a spectrum. There's no start and end to the skill set that you have. And then within each skill, I am off. Oh, back on. Within each skill, there's a wide range of how saturated and how knowledgeable you can be with that skill. For example, I've written a couple Rails apps before by myself, but I will never ever call myself a developer. My knowledge there is really shallow. Basically, it's Google. But on the opposite side, I've been doing visual design, graphic design for over 10 years professionally now, and much longer before that. So I feel much more confident and strong in those skill sets. Much like Matt and Trey, designers have a large spectrum at thoughtbot. The range starts at business strategy, all the way up into implementation in the app. They see the project from start all the way to the end of our engagement with our clients. To be able to do this, they need to be generalists with a wide range of knowledge and skill. Our designers must do user research and usability testing, facilitate design sprints with our clients, work with our clients to help ensure that they're making a viable product, that we're not just building any kind of features. They must execute on this process by making a quick prototype, and then all this must be done in a web or a mobile app, featuring a highly refined visual design. We expect them to complete this whole process while communicating effectively and efficiently and educating our clients and our developers on design. Not only do they have a wide range of skills, but they need to dive deep into each one of those skills as well. We have high expectations about the software that we produce. We ask a lot of our designers. It's not for nothing. Designers hold a lot of power in the products that they create and in the process by which they create solutions. They're actively deciding what the product is, how it solves the problems of others, not just what it looks like. The more of these decisions that the designers are part of, the more I'm starting to be confident that we're building better products for our clients. The ownership of all these skills means there's less communication overhead for the team. They don't need to convey knowledge from a researcher to a UX designer, from a UX designer to a front-end developer, from a front-end developer to a visual designer. These transitions are seamless because they're the same person. The loop of designing a solution, getting feedback on those designs, and implementing it is really short. And that's because they're all done by that same person. I've had days where I've done usability testing or research in the morning and pushed fixes to those issues that I saw in those usability tests in the afternoon. If there were more people involved in this, it would be a much harder transition. There are certainly trade-offs for us doing all these work. I'm fairly sure that each one of us aren't as good as doing research as someone who's doing research as their sole job and focusing on that. Someone that's doing that at a large startup. Or they don't spend as much time on visual design as someone in an ad agency spending every single hour doing visual design. But the trade-offs are worthwhile for us. The types of teams we work with and the types of projects we'll work on demand that. This type of skill range is not for every designer. We've had several designers leave because they'd rather focus in and specialize on one skill set within the range that we ask our designers to focus on. It's been one of the big reasons that this question came up to begin with at thoughtbot. They feel like they'd be better suited just specializing and focusing in. I personally would get really bored if you just told me that I'm just doing visual design for the rest of the year. I'd be really frustrated if I couldn't help shape the business of our clients. And I get really antsy if all I was doing was HTML and CSS. I really enjoy the variety of work and the variety that comes with the full range of designing. Our designers aren't alone though. They work closely, really closely, with our clients and our developers to figure out what the problems are that the whole team is solving for. We expect our work environment to be collaborative, with everyone having an equal say at the table. We are consultants. We're not production assistants. We go into every engagement expecting everyone on our team and our clients to communicate effectively and respectfully. As I mentioned, our developers are generalists as well. They too have a really wide range of skills that they need to go deep on. And our high expectations don't just fall in design. They're involved in business strategy. They participate in usability tests and user experiences. Both skill sets are typically left for the designer. Because of this, our developers have better empathy for our designers. Developers can have great hindsight and truly know what the value is in design. They also help with front-end development, back-end development, database management, and any kind of DevOps needed. They too are involved with the product from the start to the finish, watching our research sessions, participating in the design sprint, and delivering on user-centered features. They each bring their unique knowledge and perspective to the design process, and they are designers in their own right. I lean on their experience to help me design better products. Their skills empower them to make important design decisions while they program, as well as knowing when is a good time to ask a designer for help. This mutual respect creates strong teams. After looking at our respective roles, I started to feel like this question was more about the composition of our teams than anyone's skill range of a certain role. Because of that, I've been digging into how different teams work together, teams like the ones that make South Park, and seeing if there are things that we can take away at thoughtbot and things that we could be doing better. We believe that there's a better way to work, and we're constantly pushing ourselves and our coworkers to build better software. I've never actually rode in crew in high school or college, when I guess people typically do, but I became really interested in it when one of my clients suggested I read Boys in a Boat. It's a book based on the US Olympic team that won gold in Germany right as Hitler was coming to power. Before reading that book, I hadn't thought much about each seat in the boat and how it's actually like a position in other sports. They each have a specific role to play. I found it really interesting how often the team's coach moved people around from seat to seat to see how he could get an optimal team, the fastest team. The biggest thing that caught my attention with that was how empathetic that made each one of the rowers for their teammates. They knew what the struggles were at each seat. They knew when someone else was facing a problem, what some suggestions might be to fix it. They'd pick each other up when they made mistakes, and they'd coach each other on their perspective. That US Olympic team was an 8-person rowing team, and the team that I typically think of when I think of crew or rowing. The coxswain is seated at the stern or the back of the boat. They steer the boat, they help give the team tactics and pace. They provide information on where all the other teams are in relationship to them. And they help motivate their crew. The 2 stroke seats are the seats closest to the stern of the boat. They're the most competitive rowers. Everyone else follows their stroke, placing their blades in and out of the water at the same time. The stroke communicates with the coxswain to get feedback on how the boat feels in the water. During the race, it's the stroke's responsibility to establish the rate and rhythm given to them by the coxswain. The rower in the stroke seats will usually be the most technically sound members of the team, capable of setting a really good rhythm. The 4 rowers in the middle of the boat are called the engine room. They're the power and the muscle. They focus more on pulling as hard as they can. And they generally aren't nearly as technical as the other members of the team. And they don't necessarily need to react as much to the movement of the boat. The last 2, or I guess the front 2, since the boat's going that way, are called the bow pair. They're in charge of the stability and direction of the boat. They're often very technical rowers as well. They need to be paying attention to the stroke rate of every single person in front of them and being able to match any inconsistencies they see as the rate gets moved from rower to rower. When the team is in sync, these boats fly across the water. The moment one person gets out of sync or someone catches an oar, it slows the entire boat down. It reinforces how important that communication and empathy were for that team and teams in general, and making sure that they're keeping their rate up. The other interesting thing is not every race demands it, but it takes a lot of skill, precision, and communication to turn one of these boats. Every year during the Head of the Charles, one of the more popular rowing races in Boston, teams crash into each other along the winding river. For me, there's a really strong relationship between what I feel like is a product team and what the crew team is. The coxswain being the product owner, the product manager, managing, trying to direct the team, keeping up the pace of the team. Designers are the 2 stroke seats, setting the pace for the entire team. The engine room seats are the back-end developers. The bow pair are front-end developers, making sure they're bridging the gap between initial vision of the designers and execution of the developers. Like an 8, these product teams need to be rowing in unison. The best teams will have a strong sense of empathy for each other. They'll have knowledge of what the others are doing. This could be done by shared knowledge or communication with the team. But I often say that the best way to have a designer and developer work together is have them pair together. Similar to what the coach did for Boys on a Boat, basically have them sit next to each other. By seeing each other's work, hopefully they'll gain a newfound respect and admiration for what they do. Another type of rowing boat is called the double scull, which is really cool. It's a boat rowing with 2 oars each with 2 people. 2 people rowing with 2 oars each. These rowers have a lot more to pay attention to since there's only 2 of them and they're both rowing 2 oars. They're essentially doing the same job that the 9 people are doing on an 8. These boats tend to not have as fast times as the 8, I'm guessing because they missed the engine room. But with that decrease in speed comes a bunch of other benefits. There's less of a chance for them to get out of sync because there's only 2 of them. You'll notice there isn't a coxswain in the boat, and that's because the communication problems that might happen in an 8 are cut down significantly because there's only 2 people. It takes them less time to get up to their top speed, and they don't have the same issues as turning. Our teams at thoughtbot look more like the double Scull. They're composed of just designers and developers, and they're anywhere from 2 to 4 people. This means that teams can be constructed for the client's needs, and they're not any kind of cookie-cutter team for the project. Our smaller teams mean there's fewer communication barriers by simply having a smaller headcount. It reduces the amount of information that gets lost or misunderstood. Communication between team members and people using the software is, in my opinion, the hardest part of building. So we try to do everything to minimize that. As a team, this allows us to iterate faster, pivot in new directions faster, kill features faster, and get started on projects faster. It means our teams can be quickly put together and quickly taken apart. We're able to do that because the designers and developers' skill ranges overlap. Our lines of responsibility blur together. Because of that, we have stronger empathy and respect for each other. Our teams have trust by default. We know they're upheld to the same standards that each one of us are. Thing is, both South Park's team and the small rowing team are good for thoughtbot. But The Simpsons and South Park both are really successful shows. And the 8 and the double Scull both make it to the finish line. So while South Park and the Scull team works for thoughtbot, it might not work for you and your team. Your team might more closely resemble what the Simpsons have. What you should be deciding on and focusing on is the outcome. Is a solution you're aiming for straight ahead, or is it along a winding path? Do you think you could ship something that would only be marginally better with more time, or would that time be significant? Do you have a team of generalists taking on new challenges? Or do you have people specializing and love focusing in on one particular piece of the puzzle? All these should factor into how you surround yourself with and the roles of each team member. I played trumpet when I was in middle school, and my instructor at the time got me really into Miles Davis. At the time, I thought he was the best jazz trumpet player, hands down. As solely one of the best jazz trumpet players, he would have been an extreme specialist. But that would be because I willfully ignored his other skill sets. Miles is noted as a very shrewd and smart businessman. In a world that was dominated by white men, he carved out his own path. He made a name for himself in the music industry because of it. His name is linked to the greats of jazz, not only because of the trumpet playing, but also because of how he knew how to work the boardroom as well. He's also credited with assembling not one, but 2 of the greatest jazz quartets of all time. He knew how to pick teammates that he trusted. And he showed that trust by giving each member of his bands a space for their own creativity. Miles was the perfect manager, fully trusting his bandmates to play their best, always focused on the outcome of his team. One of his bass players has this to say about working with Miles. Miles always gave the minimum amount of instructions. Usually he'd let you try and find something that you thought worked. And if he did, then that would be the end of it. He helped develop and refine a style of jazz that gave everyone in the band the space to create. He continually wanted to push the limits of jazz, and he knew that if he put his trust in his team, that they would play the best of their ability. Miles, to me, is the perfect example of someone who's specialized, but also generalized at the same time. He's extremely well known for one skill set, but clearly branched out to many others to make himself successful. He managed constraints for all the people that he was working with, so they all could work together better. He trusted his bandmates with a crazy amount of freedom within those constraints. His lines of responsibility blurred into those of his bandmates. Oh, he also plays piano professionally too. This is what I hope that each designer at thoughtbot looks like. Well, designers at thoughtbot generalize, they still have a unique focus for each one of them. And it's a little different, and it's what makes each one of them really awesome. They're always looking to improve something about themselves, their process, their teammates. They're hungry for more knowledge to make themselves, their products, more successful. Miles has also proved to me that we can specialize as a designer, but also generalize. That we don't need to be making a choice to be doing what fits us best. Back to the question at hand, should designers code? Personally, I would encourage any designer that's curious about HTML and CSS or JavaScript, Swift, Ruby, or whatever programming language to jump in and just start building something. On the other hand, if you're up in the middle of the night thinking about usability tests, user interviews, then start conducting them. Or maybe you do visual design and you think that you could really focus in and specialize on those to become much better. Churn out lots of work, put it up on Dribble or other places, and get as much feedback and critique as possible. In other words, scratch your own itch. Always keep learning and questioning. I enjoy designing for the screen because the process isn't fixed. It's fluid. It's living, and it's easily adjusted to fit the needs of its users. It's iterative, and it's never finished. Our process tends to be blurry and haphazard, non-linear, because of the medium we're building for. Treat your skill set like you would a web or mobile app, building upon a strong foundation of features. Always keep iterating on your skill set and never stop growing. So the answer is, like most things in software, it depends. It depends on your interests, your team, depends on the problems that you're trying to solve. One solution and skill set for every person who designs things for the web, it isn't reasonable, and it'll never work out. For thoughtbot, we'll continue to have designers who implement and generalize. We like having small teams and the benefits that come with it. Designers enjoy owning the projects that they work on and working from start to finish. They like a wide variety of challenges. But I can make this call because I know all of them. I know what challenges them, I know what they're trying to learn, and what they're working on. But I'm not about to make a statement for everyone else. But, with that said, every team should have 3 things. Make sure that your roles and responsibilities blur together. The 3 ways that I know how to do that are trust, empathy, and communication. These 3 core foundations make a great team work perfectly together. And everyone must trust each other to do the right thing, the best thing for the project and its users. At thoughtbot, we have a policy that is use your best judgment. It's because we inherently believe and trust in every single one of our team members. And that if they do the right thing, what they believe is the right thing, and fail, that we'll be there to pick them up. Miles Davis trusted his team to fully create. He gave them constraints and a problem, and then freedom to solve it however they saw fit. Because of that, they were able to create great music together. It's really important that your teammates have strong empathy for everyone else on the team and for the people that they're building for. The best way to do this is to have them pair every once in a while. Have them see what each other's doing, see what the challenges are that they're facing. They'll gain newfound respect by just sitting next to each other and seeing how each other works. Matt and Trey from South Park had extreme empathy for the people that they worked with because they sat in each one of the seats. They had the full range of skill sets. And while they might not exercise each one of them, being able to have a strong sense of empathy for their teammates allows them to push out episodes in a really short amount of time. Last thing is communication. Again, I think it's the hardest part of software. At thoughtbot, we really value in-person communication because so much can get lost without face-to-face contact. The downfall to that is there isn't an automatic documentation. Having strong networks of communication outside of being in person, like Slack or Basecamp, Trello, or whatever your team uses, is really important. It's really important that those tools aren't hindering your conversation, but being able to boost it. Make sure that everyone on the team stays informed and up to date. Communication in crew goes through the coxswain, but he's not, or she's not, the end-all be-all. The teams rely on each other and each rower to pass down rate and other types of communication as they are in the race. They can't ever really fully rely on the coxswain to communicate everything. So every team member is supposed to communicate as well. At the very least, every designer should go into design with some knowledge of the constraints of that platform, whether that be print or web or mobile. They need to keep an open mind that's prepared to ask a lot of questions. What makes a great team is when each member of the team's lines blur together. Every member of the team understands enough about the other's job, and they're able to reach a high level of empathy, trust in each other, and they're able to communicate really effectively. If you're interested in rowing, I highly recommend reading Boys in a Boat. If you're interested in hearing about how the team works more at South Park, the documentary 6 Days to Air is really worthwhile. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Welcome to MiraConf. This is my Twitter and email. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Enjoy the rest of the conference. They have an amazing line of speakers lined up. I'm really excited to be staying for the rest of it.